All right, guys, this is lesson 6. These are the solutions to the practice questions. If you were looking at lesson 5, I just looked at it and realized that the volume or the audio is not very good on it, but it shows the solution, so it's not that big a deal. I'm not going to re-record it. So this one should be good. All right, so this one's one on random numbers. We did this one like 2 weeks ago, so I'm just getting the solutions put up today. If you go to number 2 in lesson 6, these are just kind of messing around ones. This one, it tells you what to do. It says run the program, see how it works. You can see that every time you run the program, the circle appears in a random spot on the same plane, which is along the x value. So when I show the grid, you can see right here that the y value is always 200, which means it's just going to stay on this 200 line right here. Okay. The random number appears between 0, which is the left side of the screen, and 400, which is the right side of the screen. So every time we run it, it just randomly appears at one of those spots. Okay. Let's move on. So if we look at the same program and we run it, okay, we can see that it's doing the same thing. So our x value is going to be between 0 and 400, which is across. And what we want to do is we want to do a random number for the y component as well. So instead of 200, we want it to randomly appear anywhere on the screen. So if you look in your toolbox, you can see that there is another tool that we're going to be using, which is the random number generator. So you can see when I drag it close to the 200, you can see it turns yellow around the 200. If I let it go, it pops right in there. Now we want it to appear anywhere from the top to the bottom. So the top of the screen is 0, and the XY values are always between 0 and 400. And so we're going to put 0 as our first parameter and 400 as our second parameter. We're going to keep the size of the circle or the ellipse as 50. So now when I run it, you can see that it just randomly appears different places on the screen, and it never goes off the screen. You might see half of it on the screen if it gets 0 or whatever, but you can see, so now we have a random number appearing as its x value and its y value. All right, so that's fairly straightforward. Okay, number 4, our first skill building activity. We're back to our eye size face. All right, and you can see here, when I run it, that it's always going to be 27. All right. So remember, we initialize the variable, and we don't want to have to change these 4 things every time we run it. So what we want to do is, instead of the number 27 appearing there, we want it to be a random number so that both eyes will always be the same size because they're using the same variable. So if I go back up to the math, I'm going to put a random number in here, and let's make it a number between, I don't know, 10 and say 60. Okay, you can use any numbers you want. So now, when I run the program, every time I run it, you can see the eyes are a different size, and they'll always appear between the 2 variables that you put in, or the 2 numbers you put in there. So the range of numbers that we decided on this one was 10 and 60. You could make it 10 and 100 if you want. You can see that when the eyes get really big, they'll just look huge. They'll look funny. So there we go. All right, and that's it. That was the only thing that needed to be changed on that one, was just adding a random number to the variable. All right, let's go to number 5. Okay, so this one is similar. There's 2 flowers. It says run the program several times to see how it works. We can see right now that this is one of the flowers, and this is the other flower down here. We can see that the petals have if you run them, they each are made up of 4 circles, and then we have our ellipse. That's the center of the flower that appears, that we don't change at all. You can see that the fill right there is center, and down here at the bottom is the center. We're going to leave those. But what we want, we can see that they're all petal size, okay? And each, the petal size here was initialized at size 30, and down here at size 60. So you can see up here, these are size 30, these are size 60. What we want to happen is whenever we run the program, we want to change the code so that the flowers have a random petal size every time you run the program. So Again, it's just like the last one. Instead of eye size, you're going to randomize the number for petal size in both flowers. So if we go to the toolbox, do the same thing, put a random number in there. Let's make it a number between, I don't know, 10 and 50. Okay, let's run it. So if you look at the top left flower, you can see the size changes. I mean, if you want to make it bigger than 50, it kind of will make it a little more interesting. Let's make it 100. There we go. That's kind of big, but it still works. So, and you want to do the same thing for the second flower. So you want to put a random number in here, and let's make it between 10 and, I don't know, 75. Boom. So, and let's do the same up here, make it 75 because 100 seemed a little big. So now when we run it, all flowers are randomly, the petal size randomly changes every time we rerun the program. All right, so that's the solution to number 5. All right, so let's go to the practice. So the practice ones are fairly straightforward. What we want to do is, if you look at the code, once you start looking at code a lot, you're going to be able to look at the code and know exactly what it's going to do. So if you look at this code, we can see that it's going to have a black background. There's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 ellipses or circles, and they're all different colors. So let's run the program, and there we go. We have 6 different, we're going to call them planets for this program because it wants you to change the sizes. All right. So what we want to do is we want each planet to have its own random size. So here's the problem for this one, guys. So we have our X value and our Y value, but there's no size value on here. So the trick to this one is you have to click on this arrow one time to give, this creates a spot for you to put your sizes. All right. So now we go up to a random number, and we want to put a random number in each one of these. Alright, so once you've created a spot for it, you'll notice it created a little error, but now once we put the random number in the spot, it changes. So let's just make them between 10 and 50. And if you do the same for each one, here's an easy way to copy, paste, paste, paste. I'm all about copy and paste. And then up here, copy, paste, paste. So the thing too, guys, is notice even though they all have the same ranges, when I run the program, they are all randomly getting the different numbers. So you'll notice that some are a little bigger, some are a little smaller. Okay, so that's all it is. So each planet's always going to be changing. All right. So in the second one, it's creating a flag, and there's 3 stripes on the flag. But notice when we run the program that the 3 stripes are separated. What we want, if you look at the sample over here on the right-hand side, is every time the flag appears, they should all be lined up properly. So let's see why it's doing this. Well, the reason it's doing this is pretty simple if you think about it. The X position changes for each of these. And somebody put in a random number generator. You can see that the first one, X position, is always going to be some random number up here. But if we want both these other rectangles to have the same X position as up here, then we need to get rid of these random numbers. All right, and we need to replace them with the same variable, so it should be X position. So I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to paste X position right there, just like that. Okay, so now when I reset it and run it, oh, come on, there we go. So it'll move around now, but all 3 rectangles are always at the same position because they all have the same X position, which is a random number. All right? And the assessment. Okay, so this assessment requires you to kind of look at some patterns. Okay, so you're going to notice that there are 3 circles, and they only range like up and down just a short little space. So you can see that their Y value, all right, their Y value is a random number between 190 and 210, and all 3 of them are the same. They all have the same size. They're all size 50. The only thing that changes is you're going to see the first ellipse appears at X 100. So if we look at the grid, there's 100. The second one appears at 140, then 180. So if you notice the pattern here, we're counting by 40s. So what we want to do is we want to go ahead and we want to put in a fill color for our next ellipse, and look at the colors up here. So we need a green one, a blue one, and a purple one. So let's type in green. Let's put in our ellipse. And so we counted by 40s, right? So 100, 140, 180. So 180 plus 40 is 220. So that should be 220. And the second number should be the random number that you see up here. So we got to go to our toolbox under math. There's random number, and we want to use the same range that we have up here. And notice what will happen if I run this program right now. Boom. The green is bigger than everything else, so we need to make sure that it's only size 50, like so. So now when I run it, we can see that it follows along with the same ones, the same other ones. So we want to do the same thing with the blue one and the purple one. Okay, so we want to go back to another fill color. We want to put in another ellipse, and one more fill color, and one more ellipse. So put them all in ahead of time. So we have green, this one should be blue, and the bottom one is going to be purple. And the same thing, so count by 40s. 220 plus 40 is 260, and then 260 plus 40 is 300. So we have the same spacing, and we want to have the same random numbers for your Y values. Random number, and we want to have the same range, 190 to 210. 190 to 210. A lot of you guys figured this out on your own, so I'm doing this for those that had problems. So then notice I'm changing the sizes of the circles back to 50 for all of them. So that should do it. So if I hit the run button, there we go. That's what we're looking for. We're looking for something that looks kind of like a snake moving. That is the solution for Lesson 6's assessment. So they're all there. Good luck.